Hey, welcome back guys, on this rather warm but windy day. Sorry I've been away for a while, but I was sort of travelling and then was rather ill for a bit actually, unfortunately. But we're back now and we've got some flowers. So let's get arranging. You'll also probably see this. So been away for a while, but got some rather exciting plans. It's something sort of, I picked this vase up on Facebook Marketplace. God, I love Facebook Marketplace. I kind of had that idea for a while now to maybe do sort of a submerged flower arrangements that you kind of see online a bit, but I'm sort of a combination of that also with sort of, you see there's like microbiome bottle things. So I think the grand plan is maybe sort of chuck some soil in there, sort of soil not that will actually play much effect. You don't usually want to put cut flowers with soil. Soil kind of layer, then I'm going to try and sheet that off, and then some gravel on top, and then try and sort of build the arrangement in here, which could be quite interesting. I'm not sure there's necessarily much technique for that, or or stuff you can find online, but I just thought it could be quite a cool idea. I picked up these tulips, yeah, as I say, quite sort of late in the day at quite a good rate. I think there's sort of, and I think also for this sort of submerged thing, it's quite a nice way to use them because it's like things, so some imperfections, blemishes on the tulips don't really have such a big effect. Also tulips, which I'm sort of considering doing, I don't know if I'm going to quite do yet, but they actually are a flower that can just be fully submerged underwater. You see that occasionally, which I think is quite a cool look, so maybe I'll actually fully submerge them. I'm sort of yet to make a decision on that, but... So yeah, as I was saying, here are the tulips and the foliage we're going to be using. Kind of a nice orangey colour. I think should go well with the blue, but yeah, this gives you a idea of the size of the container. Yeah, some of the gravel we're going to be using. Try to sort of wash it with an old colander. But I think here's the plan. Plan is maybe to try and fill it up to about there with soil, kind of there-ish, then a layer of stone, and then sort of build the arrangement of flowers in here, and then leave it open air. And whether I decide to completely submerge it in water or not, I'm sort of TBC, but I think that's the plan and should be exciting. I think the first step is I'm going to try and fill this up with some soil, which I'm actually just going to pinch from our garden beds. It's too much soil anyway. I've got some compost in a bag somewhere as well, but yeah, start with that. That'll be the best spectating to start with. Sort of trying to check what proportions I want of soil. I think a bit more. Right. I think I'm fairly happy. God, this is going to weigh an absolute ton when it's done. I think I'm fairly happy with that level of soil in there. Oh, do I want a bit more? Feels like that's seen some Ocean's 11. One more? Yeah, okay, I think we want a bit more. After successfully emptying most of the flower bed in here now, I think I've got to the level that I want. I only spilled so much soil over myself. Now the plan is, I'm going to try and use cling film, just add like a layer over the top to present sort of when I do put the water in it all just seeping into the soil, making the soil rotten. Also, yeah, the soil, usually actually you don't want to mix soil and cut flowers too much because there's quite a lot of bacteria in the soil which kind of accelerates the rotting process of the flowers. So trying to create like a level of that, also so we can then just put the water in and the soil doesn't get all damp and sort of dirty down there. So I'm trying to use cling film, which is fairly notoriously hard to work with, but I think the idea is, yeah, lay it down, should create a bit of a water seal, but also without sort of being too sore on the eye. This is the bit I was slightly concerned about. I tell you what, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm not going to get the camera here and show you what it looks like down here, because you'll realise how underwhelming I should be happy, whether I should be happy with this or not. But it seems to have covered most of the base to more or less extent. So now I'm just going to add kind of more stones gradually along the sides to try and keep it brought down. I'm hoping when water gets added as well, that this will become sort of even less visible. Slowly add the rest of the flowers, stones even. I don't mind about the stones playing contact with the flowers so much, because these are stones actually pretty recently just bought from a garden centre and are sort of clean, and I've actually washed them, hence why I'm pulling them out of an old colander. Yeah. Right, I'll have to get more stones. More stones. I want to use it with a salad spinner. Right, and with that, I think most of the stones are set, and to be honest, I quite like the way it looks. I accidentally washed some of the stones with warmish water, which has proven to not be the most intelligent thing, because it then obviously just steamed up everywhere. But let's get the condensation out. I quite like it. The cling film is still clearly kind of slightly evident here and there, but I'm hoping when we actually add the water, the light will kind of mean that it's much harder to see. I guess now it sort of just gets us finally to the flower arranging a bit, kind of most of the semantics out of the way. I don't quite know how we're going to do this. I think it's not really, it's still like quite a proportional amount of height, and we need everything to fit in here. And the length this foliage is at, I don't really think it needs to be trimmed. I'm going to try and sort of just plant into the stones. I think the stones hopefully going to act also a bit of giving me grip to sort of put something into. Form a little bit of a base around that, and then just sort of sporadically drop the tulips about. I don't know whether sort of it's almost easier to form it up like a bouquet before and then place it in, whether to place every each individual stem is. What I might do though. So, I think I'm going to keep most of the leaves on this tulips because there's not a hell of a lot of foliage. Yeah, but looking from this, kind of maybe need a bit of trim off, so I think I might just trim some of the ends off these quickly. And I quite like to put some water by me when I'm trimming stuff up, but in it goes. This one's particularly bushy actually. Maybe easier to start with the slightly less leafy ones. Now, I think what's important to try and bear in mind is in these submerged things, unlike with usual flower arrangements where you sort of look from the top, you kind of look at the side here. I think having it pressed up against the glass is not such a bad look. But as in having tulips, usually you kind of want your foliage around the outside and it kind of flops the side of it, and then the sort of flowers and the particularly sort of higher, like, bushier flowers sit in the middle, and then sort of you look down on them and the foliage is kind of fallen away a bit and droops underneath it and kind of pushes up the flowers. But here it's sort of the reverse effect where actually the foliage, like everything, is going to be jammed up against the side. So if you have too much foliage sort of only on the outside, then only the tulips in the middle, you'll actually kind of hide the pretty colour of the tulips with the foliage. At least that's what I'm thinking. But we'll kind of have a play around and see. I think this is certainly going to be more of a work in progress type arrangement than absolutely crushing it first time, but as every flower arrangement should be, to be honest. You kind of refuse to believe anyone gets it right absolute first time. So you can look with your eyes and see whether what you're doing makes any sense or not. That's a single tulip kind of look in there. I'll tell you what, not utterly ridiculous, which is sort of a good sign. I'm trimming these up like normal at an angle underwater. I might over trim that one. No. Nestle in those stones a bit. So we'll end up placing more of these tulips. There. I picked the orange actually, not only because it was reduced in a Madagascar and I thought kind of could be fun in an arrangement like this. But actually I think the orange, sort of through the blue, slight blue tint of the glass, could still give a nice effect, I think. Also quite wary of the colours and how the tint might affect them. But I think burnt orange is a nice look. Just go around filling these in, really. It's going to be the name of the game. Barbecue coming up with some mates tomorrow. Quite fun to have this, a little showpiece, I think. I think it's quite unique, actually. Well, certainly unique. Whether anyone likes it, I think it looks good. It's completely by the by, but maybe points for creativity and originality. Yeah. I don't know if any of farmers watch this. It sort of reminds me of this one time, working on a farm briefly, checking cows' prostates, dipping your hand in there, except sort of less big plastic gloves and slightly less smelly, which is nice, but trying to be relatively delicate. Quite a small hole, but it's nice. I think maybe, looking at it so far, I think I might try and cut a few tulips quite short to sort of have a few heads kind of here-ish. To please with the groupings. I think maybe I might save this kind of bushy bit of foliage go down the middle in the end. But yeah, I think maybe a couple kind of really short around the outside. In hindsight, it would be a lot easier to obviously have started with them, because now I'm going to have to push it past all the other ones. But late never, as they say. Something like that looks quite nice. Yeah, just sort of gives it an extra layer of depth. I'm trying to vaguely balance the number of heads I have around here. Do with another one just here, not so visible on the camera, another one here. Again, they might sort of be shorter ones. I'll be honest, I'm not sure. There's not a hell of a lot of stuff online about how long something like this will last. I sort of I'm mainly using it for display tomorrow, so I bought flowers sort of were near at the end of their life cycle anyway, because I just sort of want it to be up for tomorrow and the barbecue I'm having. But I will report back to you all on whether this actually lasts any duration of time or not. I want that to be a small one again. So one final tulip, sort of have a quick look around, don't want to waste it. I'm pretty happy from that angle actually, particularly the front, looks to be quite well packed. Maybe another one at the back here, I might keep this long one, not too sure. I think I want to find a long one in the back here. And then finally, yeah, I quite like the idea. This is sort of bushiest bit. The foliage I have, I'm going to plonk that down the centre. Try not to knock too many of them over. Kind of almost gives quite a fun closed off effect to. That's a harder stem. I actually don't want any flowers protruding. Decided further. And there we go, more or less. There's some subtle adjustments to be made to be sure. Some of the flowers kind of look pressed against the glass, but I quite like the effect of that. Look from other angles as I try and batten it plane. Generally speaking, I really like this actually. It's worked out kind of better than I was hoping for initially. I was kind of, when I planned it in my head. Yeah, so this is the final thing. It's a bit chaotic, but you know, I mean, that's sort of what it's always like. But I really like the effect of it actually. I think it's quite cool. Again, that cling film is slightly showing there, but I'm hoping when I add some water in a second, that will all sort of merge into it and slightly disappear. Water to it, and kind of see that has helped the cling film situation a bit. It's not perfect. You can see that kind of bubbling a bit away at the left there, but it does help that it kind of disappear. There are some spots where it's particularly bunched, where it doesn't look absolutely perfect, but generally as an aesthetic, I'm quite happy with it. Quite proud, maybe in hindsight, or next time, maybe using a black bin bag would be kind of less revealing and be less visible. But as a first attempt, that's something I've sort of never tried before, never really seen before. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. This is kind of what it looks like from the top, and kind of from all angles. Yeah, and there's, to be honest, it's like I'm still kind of TBC about whether I fully submerge it, because tulips and the sort of foliage Ruscus I put in could last like that. A flower, it can be fully submerged, but so far I think it's like that. Sort of the air bubbles, water bubbles, water droplets of added water. It's not making it absolutely crystal clear, but hopefully they'll sort of dry off or sort of form away. But I like it. I think it feels like one of those botanist tanks, but with flowers and a slightly bit more exciting to it. But yeah, thank you very much all. I'll catch you in the next one. Hopefully won't be such a big gap before then and now. Bye.